Welcome to the Social Media Church podcast. I'm Neil Smith, joined by my co-host, Aaron Magnuson. Aaron, welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here from my closet. And I'm really excited, Nils, because I feel like we've just recorded a lot of podcasts in a row together.
Yes.
And that was not the rhythm last year.
Yeah.
And so I'm just thankful for how 2022 has started off
For sure.
hand in hand across the country. I guess it's not so much across the country anymore, being in Dallas. It used to be across the country from LA to New York. Now it's from Dallas to New York. But super happy to be here and really happy with all the value that we've been able to give already in 2022. And today, I just think we want to point attention off of ourselves onto other churches that you should be watching. So we're going to give it to you straight. We're always going to have the best tips for you here. But the practical outworking of that is really valuable as well, just for new ideas, for new thoughts, and not necessarily to carbon copy, but definitely to get inspiration from and think about, oh, that's how they're using that technology, or that's how they're using that tactic on a certain social media platform. What can we do, and what does that look like for our church? So today we're going to talk about, do we have 5, Nils? Because we could just call this the top 5 churches to watch on social media.
Let's see how it lands.
Okay.
So we'll call it top 5.
At least be 5.
And the truth is, this list could be 50. There are so many churches doing an incredible job maximizing social media.
Send them to us. Reach out.
And you might have, and one of the things that I wish I had on this list is our smaller churches. And I think people are often like, oh, it's just big churches. And the reality is those often have more resources, and they put a lot of creative energy into what they're doing online. But I do know there's a lot of smaller churches that are doing an incredible job online. And so I hate leaving those off. I will just go ahead and then we'll just kind of hit some of the ones we're watching. I do want to note, though, before I jump into this list, is that oftentimes I hear church leaders say, like, I don't want to watch other churches. I just want to watch what big brands are doing, or secular brands, or I just want to learn from this. And good. I'm glad you're looking at other things to be inspired from, but there's a lot we can learn from each other too. And I think that we're being short-sighted if we don't look at other churches or other ministries to learn from them too. So I still remember when I was at Community Bible Church, and I remember Alan George from Life Church would call me and be like, bro, I saw what you did in this. And he's like, you're watching our services? He's like, dude, I watch everything you're doing. Like and Jay Craner from Saddleback. And I'm like, Saddleback is watching Community Bible Church. And these big churches are watching other churches too. Like we should be, and good for them. And how humble of them to go and look at others and learn from others and not think they've got all the answers to what they're doing. And so whatever season you're in, if you feel like you're thriving, and if you feel like you don't have anything to learn from another church, I think you need to just be humbled a little bit, because I guarantee you probably the church at the top of the list, which I'll name first, is Elevation Church, that so many churches look at. I guarantee you that they're looking at other churches and that they're learning from other churches. And so Elevation, I do think, is kind of the gold standard in church social media. Now, I think there are challenges when people look at them, that I hear they have a staff of 20 video editors and, all of these resources to create a lot of the content they're creating. But they're also like, man, what they're doing in Facebook groups and some of the things that aren't kind of the millions of Instagram followers or the millions of YouTube subscribers. But they're just, at the end of the day, they're putting out great content. They're being very intentional to respond and engage around their content, and building communities big and communities small to help people in using social media to accomplish their ministry goals. Any thoughts on Elevation, Aaron? And is that a church you watch?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, who doesn't watch Elevation? I think that Elevation does such a good job of, obviously testing those new things, and we have the bandwidth. When you're that size, a church like that has the bandwidth to be able to just be an early adopter, and not all of us. Some of us have to wait or wait for a certain technology. Now, I will say the advantage that we have is phones have come so far. That's really limited the playing field. And honestly, on social media, phones play better than in some cases, certainly on TikTok, better than a highly produced service now, or a highly produced piece of content. And so, yeah, I think Elevation, similar to a Life Church, has just been so good for so long and consistent. And I think if there's just one thing to learn from Elevation, it's just consistency. Now, it is funny that I say that because I'm also remembering, I don't remember how long ago this was, where Elevation just deleted everything off of their Instagram. They just like hit the reset button. I didn't know how I felt about that, but I do think even things like that, following a bigger church that has more content, what are they doing with their content? How are they organizing their content? What stuff is going on Pastor Stephen's page and what stuff is going on the church page? And so even if you're not there, even just the understanding of maybe where you want to be, or even just a few steps down the road. And for some of us, I remember seasons of my life where Elevation was many steps down the road, where you're just able to organize and make sure you're in line with where to go. And so I would say that's probably one of the things that I glean most from Elevation, is that idea. I also really just love the innovation they took in COVID of just their online service going up a notch. And I think they did live MCs better than anybody else. And then how did those personalities is kind of a funny thing to say. We stay away from that with church, but how do those personalities translate online, and what are they doing with those people in an online sense, and how are they utilizing them from Sunday to during the week on social media? So I think with Elevation, that's probably what I take most from them, is just they're doing lots of campuses with a very large lead pastor that has his own brand and social media, and how do those things correlate? How do they work together? What content goes where? So less to do about the content itself and more to do about the organization of the content.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, number 2 on my list is Transformation Church. Now, this is a church we know closely, but I'm curious from your seat, what are you looking at when your seat of being the online pastor at Shoreline City?
Yeah.
And what you see with social media, what are you looking at and learning from Transformation Church?
Transformation Church, just what I learned most is voice and tone from Transformation Church. They reach such a young audience, and I feel like they're almost, if we're comparing Elevation and Transformation Church, Elevation is a season of like they have a couple kids, it's a parent. They've had the sleepless nights. They're a little bit older. They've seen, now they're reaching, generally speaking, a younger demographic as well. But I feel like there's an expectation of how to act. And I would say with Transformation Church, one of the beautiful things about them is they refuse to be in that stage of we've gotten to a certain size and now we have to act a certain way. In Transformation Church, for all the best reasons, and I guess you could make an argument for not the best, I personally think it's for all the best reasons, choose not to act that way. And so what I love about them is they're not afraid to make that video. They're not afraid to use that illustration. And all of you know that illustration that I'm talking about that was borderline. But they didn't let their size stop them from doing it. And so that also directly applies to social media is, we're going to try making that video. We're going to let Pastor Mike record a video on his iPhone. We're not going to throw him in a studio. We're not going to hook up a mic. We're going to let this be very unveiled, very raw, but also like the best beat underneath it, and like lots of energy and lots of just excitement about what's going on, and passion and enthusiasm. And I believe that those are all, I haven't visited there in person. Nils, you have a few times. You're going again recently. I believe that is what you would experience and encounter if you were there in person as well. And so they really just let themselves bleed into their social media. And I think that is what I love and learn most about Transformation Church, is how do we do that better with our context?
Agreed. I'd say the other thing that, because we've got an insight into Transformation, we know that they have a team now of about 200 volunteers that are responding to every single comment and message that comes in. and the way they have empowered and the responsiveness
Yep.
of social media, of not just a distribution of content, but a relationship
Right.
that is formed through their content on social media, is, I think, a big part of their ministry success. And I think success is often defined publicly by followers, but I think as you get on the inside of these ministries, it's really defined by life change. And I think that's what you see very significantly through Transformation
Yes.
Church.
That's
The
right.
next church, Aaron, that I want to highlight is a church out of Cincinnati,
Yep.
Crossroads Church. Are you familiar with Crossroads, or I'm curious if there's anything that you catches your attention with Crossroads?
No, Nils, enlighten me. Pretend I'm an audience listener. I have not followed them. I can't visually picture them in my head. I maybe have seen their thing unknowingly, but yeah, let me know what you like about Crossroads in Cincinnati.
Yeah, so I have had the privilege of following them. I actually remember meeting them at a media social meetup, maybe a decade ago,
Wow.
as they were one of the first churches in a media social. And this was when they were maybe like 2 years old as a church, and exploding as a new young multi-site church. But they really, from the beginning, saw themselves uh, as a media first church,
Yep.
of using the power of media to build the community of church. And so they have been creating really great, unique content distributed in a very unique way. And through their, they got a lot of engagement in their TV app, but really, and they were in many ways built for the pandemic. And so they were a church that really had already seen tremendous growth and development. And then the pandemic, I think, just, shot them into another level. But they're continuing to just do some really unique things. What they're doing with their mobile app now, around discipleship and customized content to the end user, is really interesting. But I think too, at the core of social media being that front door into both their local and their virtual church,
Yes.
they're just doing some really cool things. Now there are several Crossroads churches out
Yes.
there, and so I think it's crossroadschurch.net is their website.
Nice.
But it's Crossroads Cincinnati. And there's Crossroads there in Southern California too that I love and is doing a great job.
Yeah.
And I think worth looking at. But Crossroads Cincinnati is the church I think that's doing that I'd put in that top 5.
I love it.
Okay, number 4 that I'll put on this list is a church out of, and it's interesting. None of these churches so far, at least, are in metropolises. And so I think that's just interesting to know. People would assume they're maybe in LA, New York, Chicago, or Miami or Dallas, but really, we're talking, Charlotte is pretty big, but it's not, I'd say, as big as some of these other. Tulsa is definitely not that big. Cincinnati's, definitely not known as like a media hub. Now the next one is James River Church in Missouri, as people in Missouri like to say. My mom lived in Missouri for a little bit.
There you go.
But they're in, I think the multi-site church, they're in, so James River Church, huge church that people often hear of, but don't, like, I don't know. They are crushing it on social media. And really, they're putting out some incredible content. They've leaned in to online. They're actually launching their own metaverse campus here in a couple of weeks.
That is awesome.
Saw online, and just doing some cool things on social media, and really just being very thoughtful and intentional of their, some of these other churches are really young, new churches. James River is not a new church. Their church, their Assemblies of God, a denominational church that has been around for decades now, but continues to evolve and emerge and lean in. And they have for sure prioritized social media in a very significant way.
I'm going to have to look at James River because I know that our pastors here at Shoreline City are friends with and speak at James River, but I had not heard of James River. And so if you're listening right now and you're like, who? And this is one of the largest churches in America, if not the world. Yes. I had, up until a few years ago, because of Nils and a conversation that we had at a conference, I was unaware of James River. I was like, what? I've never, in Missouri, like in Missouri, right? Yeah. Like wherever that is. And so, I just think I love the scope of churches that you've put in your top 4 list thus far, because, you're going to see a lot of these churches have resources,
Yes.
but you're going to see how resources get used differently, and
Yes.
the different focuses based on the demographics in the area. And so our listeners are going to get a great scope here of places to check out. But I'm going to need to look at James River, especially now with their interest in the metaverse. And historically have they had a very big online campus presence, like in terms of like broadcasting their service and stuff, or did they just
No,
recently get into?
I don't have a whole lot of history,
Yeah,
on the church. I just know that they've been, just looking at their content, they've been getting into my feed a lot more.
yeah,
And I've just been paying attention and watching them on YouTube. They're doing a really good job on YouTube.
yes,
And really they've leaned in heavily onto YouTube as a primary social media platform, distribution channel. And so they're
yeah,
just, I think they're leaning in strong, putting good resources towards it. And and they're seeing some fruits, at least from what I can tell.
sure,
I don't have, I've got some relationships there, but
yep,
not deep ties like we do to some of the other ministries. The last church, and I want to give honorable mention to two churches that I won't
okay,
add, so we'll do top five. But the honorable mention I want to give to Shoreline City, which you really can't
yes,
highlight, but you guys are crushing it on social media and continuing to prioritize and develop. And I think it's a church worth watching in 2022 to see what happens there. And then Life Church, I think, is worth following everything they do. I love
totally,
Life Church. I think they're doing a good job. I will say, and one of the things that I like that they're doing is TikTok. They've leaned into
hmm
TikTok. Um, but I also feel like they, I just they're not pushing the limits like I would love to see them do. Like I feel like
yes,
Elevation or some of these other churches are pushing limits of each of the unique platforms. Where I feel like Life Church is hitting just a really solid double, over and
yeah,
over again on all the platforms,
yes.
doing a
They're
really
kind of
good
like they're
job.
kind of like the Spurs. They're kind of like
Kind
the
of like the
Spurs.
Spurs.
We're
They're
just going to
always
go
going
up
to
and
be
down the
good.
court, pop. Yeah, they're
And
always
win
going to be
lots of
okay. Yeah,
championships. They're always going to be okay. But the last church though I want to put on this list is VR Church,
yeah,
led by our friend DJ Soto. I think he's worth watching what he's building in alt space VR. I'm intrigued to see what he's doing, what he's done for years. This is how I found out about Discord.
years,
Is
years.
he just has
Me
been
too,
so
actually.
far on the front edge, and I just remember thinking, and he's definitely like, I feel like I'm the guy that people often look to like, you're pretty nuts. Like DJ is the guy that I think is nuts. Like I'm like, bro, are you sure this is a good idea? And so
Yes.
he has leaned in with
Yep.
boldness, and I definitely am past the point of questioning any of his craziness because he has continued to be right in the things that he has predicted for what VR church and Web3 church will look like.
Yep.
And so the things that I'm going to keep watching him to see where he's leaning from here, because where he
Totally.
was leaning 3 years ago, boy, he was spot on. I'm eager to see what he does from here.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great. I'm glad we threw that in there. We got to have a non-physical church, and I would say, yeah, follow VR Church. Follow DJ Soto, his personal page. He does a great job of like as a lead pastor of a virtual church, promoting that well. I'll throw in two. If the third one comes to my mind, I'll throw that in as well.
Okay.
I would say honorable mentions. We'll keep them,
Yeah.
but just for more breadth as we round up this episode. So I have to throw in bt.church, and their handle on Instagram is bt.church. That is my good friend Danny Rangel. Danny is not the lead pastor, but Danny's like the communications director, social media director,
Okay.
all in one. Wears lots of
Yeah.
hats. Now this is like in the deep south of Texas. I don't even remember the name of the city that they're in, but it's like 7 hours south of Dallas. So it's like way down there. But Danny and BT Church, they've done a great job of building a podcast. They've done a great job of promoting their podcast on their page. I feel like they have a remarkable number of followers. I know that a few people at Shoreline City were looking at it, they're like, what? Because he came to visit. He was at a conference in Dallas, and they were looking at it, they're like, wow, that's like a lot of followers on social media for the size of the church that they have. And they've just done a good job of leveraging social media to find pockets of people in other cities to start like meetups and things like that. And so they've done a really good job there. So bt.church is one that I would throw in. I always want to throw in my church that I was a part of in Oregon. And I feel like I have credibility. This is not the homer pick because Katie Allred, our friend, more so your friend, Nils, I've never met Katie in person, spoke at the conference, now works at Facebook. She wrote an article a little while back for Church Communications highlighting Albany Grove Church. And I reached out to her, but I was like, how did you find them? And she's like, I don't know. They just stood out to me. So it had nothing to do with me and the connection with Nils. So I feel like I can honorably say I would watch them. And if you are a smaller, under-resourced church that doesn't have someone who's singly over social media, look at how the Albany Grove, I think it's at Albany Grove on Instagram, unless you've changed your handle. They do a great job of creating that personal connection for their tribe. And whether that's through updates, whether that's through updates without bulletin board material. Like when we talk about don't be a bulletin board, they're not that, but they do a great job of leading people through their social media. So those would be the two that I would throw in on the maybe smaller side. I don't think BT is not a small church, but on a less known side, I would throw those in.
I love it. Good picks. And it's going to be fun to watch 2022.
Yes, it is. And I know we missed some, so reach out to us.
Reach out to us about it.
We missed some.
And I think what I hope you'll take away too is let's learn from each other. And let's share on social media what we're doing and in even other churches that we see, and let's celebrate their wins. Let's celebrate the unique things that they're doing. And
better yet, Nils, tell us about it in our Discord. And let's learn together in our social media church Discord. We're going to be promoting this heavily these next few episodes because it has launched a few episodes ago. We did a whole episode with Jonah Wiley on Discord. That is going to be a great space where our community can learn together. If the 100 spots aren't taken up yet, you may even still get an NFT, a social media church NFT from us. So make sure you sign up. Let us know about churches we missed in our Discord. That's where we want to hear from you.
That's good. And you can find our Discord at socialmedia.church. You'll find a button real big there on the website. So go to socialmedia.church. Do that and connect with us on social media. Let's stay connected. Let's keep learning from each other and with each other. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again on the next episode.